Hello and welcome. I'm Connor Clevenger, and welcome to my critical reflection of the rock. So I'm going to start out by talking about our use of conventions. First, we challenge the convention of artificial lighting. I used the convention of beginning the movie in the midst of a conversation, and then also the use of dialogue. So to start, we had no artificial lighting in our movie. What this meant is to light our scenes, we only used natural light, which was the light that was actually there where we were filming. I really like this. This was done on purpose. It added to the realism of the scenes and made it for a more grittier, realistic feel. A real media example of this is the use of natural light in Breaking Bad, such as in the scene on the right here, where you have two characters out in the desert with another one. As you can see, the only light is coming from the camper. And once again, adds to the gritty and realism and makes this situation seem more serious, which is what we were going for as well. As for my next convention, I learned it from the film Pulp Fiction. What this convention essentially is starting the movie in the midst of a conversation. As you can see on the right here, the two characters in the bottom in Pulp Fiction were having a conversation when the movie started. What this does is it immediately engages the viewer and it kind of starts the action and progresses the film without wasting much time. Sean on the right here, in our example, he started the movie talking about, "Are you sure this place is safe? Where are the cops?" This is very exciting dialogue and it gets the viewer engaged immediately, which is what we wanted. For the next convention, it was the use of dialogue. It was essential to our film. Our film would not have worked without us having any dialogue in it. And this is true for most films, as it is used in most films, especially ones in our genre. It's very conventional in films to have dialogue. And honestly, if a film didn't have dialogue, it'd be very unconventional of it. My example was Better Call Saul, a show about being a lawyer and getting through tough situations. The action in that film is often progressed by dialogue, as is our movie. So next I'm going to talk about the social groups. We had two main social groups, and then one of the social groups is made of two subcategories. They're the candy sellers and the consumers. The candy sellers can be broken up into the experienced and the inexperienced. You can see the three social groups on the right here. I will talk about them more in depth right now. So to start, you have the experienced dealers. This was portrayed by Tiana. She did a really good job of making the experienced dealers portraying the social groups being intimidating and in control. I thought this was perfect and it fit the film very well. Now, as for the other side or spectrum of the candy sellers, you have Sean. He represented the inexperienced dealer. He did a really good job of making the dealer seem nervous and vulnerable, which, kind of is where we wanted him at this point in the film. So he did a great job of that and a great job portraying that social group such as that. Next is the consumer, which was portrayed by me. I wanted the consumer to seem carefree, only worrying about what he was buying. This lends into him only caring about himself. And one of the main things that I wanted to nail with this social group is to progress the film and it add to the action is that he has no loyalty. He only cares about himself and buying what he wants to buy. So for my first example of audience engagement, I decided to look at the film Get Out. As you can see on the right, the poster used scenes from the movie without giving really too much away. It also says from the minor Jordan Peele, who's a commonly well-known comedian, whose skits and Key and Peele have millions of views on YouTube. Which is why they advertised it on YouTube, because they had a large target audience there that would be interested in the film due to it being directed by him, and also on TV because it opens up the audience and allows more people to see the commercials and want to go see the movie. They also had a very in-depth website that really got fans intrigued and did a lot of the basic things but also going over the top, such as having filters on social media and such. There was also a midnight screening of the film, which helped mind my dog, if you can hear that. They also had a midnight screening of the film, which helped build hype and anticipation for the film that came out the next day. This allowed critics to say, "Oh, this movie is great. Oh, I love this movie." And people on social media say this as well. I was actually at a midnight screening of the film, and I enjoyed it. And I told a lot of people the next day they should definitely go see this. And I think that worked to their advantage. I took my dog out of the room, so hopefully it's a lot more quiet now and better. So for my next audience engagement, I looked at the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, another Tarantino film because, well, I like his films and I wanted to start an art film after them. How this movie decided to engage its audience is very interesting to me. As you can see on the right, was a photo of them on a late night show. Them being very high profile actors that people want to see. Therefore, they were able to use stills and hints to hint who was in the movie. Because they had a high profile cast, this was able to work. And it also used the media very well. News publications, a lot of people on social media were talking about this movie because they were talking about these high profile actors that a lot of people love and that they're all in the same movie. Therefore, they allowed that to kind of engage their audience and do the advertising for them. A technique which is really great. Sadly, we're unable to do that because I'm not Brad Pitt and Sean wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio, which, we wish we were, but it's a shame. So for my next audience engagement, and probably the most interesting, was Joker. So to start out, they had posters focused on the main character. As you can see, there are 2 examples of the posters. There are plenty more. All of them had a common theme. They were all focused on the main character. This was able to tell the audience this movie is about him. He'll go through stuff in life and you'll see that stuff, but the movie is focused on him. As you can see, the color scheme also adds to the kind of darkness of the posters, which kind of hints that this movie was very dark, which it was. They also released a teaser trailer that went viral on the internet. That's a very good thing. If your trailer is going viral, that's amazing because that's a lot of advertisement, a lot of people seeing it. So something that I thought was probably the most interesting is that news publications criticized the film. They wrote news articles and a bunch of stuff talking about they thought this film was going to insinuate real life crises because that's what occurred in the film. Whether I agree with that, I will not touch on, but what I'm saying is that this was advertisement for them. This engaged their audience and made people go see the film, so it worked out for them despite the criticism they endured. So now I'm going to talk about our marketing plan. We decided, after doing our research, we should create a billboard. We were going to create a poster, but we thought a billboard would reach our audience better. So we made the billboard, which you can see on the bottom and the right, and then we decided to post a billboard on the Instagram, which you can see above it. A large portion of our audience uses Instagram. We concluded that a lot of our audience would probably be driving and be on Instagram, not at the same time, because don't do that to drive, it's a terrible idea. But a lot of our target audience do these 2 things. So we thought by using these two types of advertisements, we could really engage our audience well, something that we of course want to do. So throughout my research, I found this to be the traditional distribution model. A major theatrical release in theaters across the nation, across the world, and then about a 2-month period before a video on demand and streaming release. However, what I found most is that this is being challenged. Video on demand and streaming services are putting the theaters out of business. People are just waiting to see the films on video on demand or the streaming service, and they're not really waiting or going to see it in theaters as much as they used to. Therefore, a lot of films have changed their distribution plan, which we took into effect as well. So for my first research on a film, I chose The Hateful Eight, another Tarantino film, which as you might find is a common thing for me. So how they did this is they had a limited roadshow release, which is an early screening of the film in certain select theaters around the nation. And then 5 days later, they had a major theatrical release. And then this was more traditional one. And then 2 months or so later, they had it available for stream on Netflix. Now this engaged their audience very well, and a lot of people were able to see these things. They also put the limited roadshow release, because it was at a wider frame, onto Netflix for any fans that wanted to see that, which could bring more people in to see it. From the next film, El Camino, which is from the Breaking Bad, kind of franchise that I love. You probably tell that from watching this. It was released only in select theaters. It was funded by Netflix, therefore they probably had more rights over it than theaters did. So therefore it was released only in select theaters, and then only days later it was released straight to Netflix. Now this was a genius move that ended up profiting very well. A large portion of this movie's target audience is on Netflix, because Breaking Bad had gained a ton of attention when it went to Netflix. Most people, including myself, watch Breaking Bad through Netflix. Therefore, a lot of their fans have Netflix. So they knew by releasing this movie onto there, a lot of their fans would see it and they would get a lot of money. For my next film, The Irishman, a film which I thought was great. However, their digital distribution failed. This is an example of a failed release, and this is something we decided to learn from. So Netflix funded the film. Therefore, they felt that they had a lot of rights on it. This caused a stalemate between Netflix and theaters. The theaters wanted a major theatrical release because it was a Scorsese film and had Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci in it, as you can see on the right. You know, all three very high-profile actors that work for Scorsese. People wanted this film on the major theaters. However, due to the stalemate between Netflix and the theaters, it was only released in select theaters, and then about a month or so after, it was released on the Netflix. This failed for them because while it did stir up some profits, it could have been much more profitable, but due to them arguing and having a stalemate, it caused this to happen, which we decided to learn. So for our traditional distribution of our film, we wanted to play our film in film festivals. Our film is not as high profile as the ones I just described. We need to build up hype and anticipation for our film and gain some fans from something such as a film festival. Then, once we have people talking about our film, we will have a major theatrical release. Most films I found make the most money in the about first few weeks of them being released theatrically. Therefore, we want that. We want to make that amount of money. Now, as for my digital part of this, I learned this from the Irishman example. I want to have a 20 to 30-day period before the video on demand Netflix release. I think I've found that this about time should be perfect for a lot of people to see it in theaters. Then once the theaters start to slow down and people start seeing it less, it will then be on video on demand and Netflix immediately for people to watch. Something that I think can be very profitable and work out well for. So my production skills have obviously improved throughout the creation of this project. Before, when I first did this, I had not worked on a project like this at all. I used a lot of stuff for the first time in this project. Therefore, comparing me at the beginning to me now, I've learned a lot, and my production skills have definitely improved. I will touch on the two, camera skills and directing actors, right now. So my camera skills definitely improved. In the first filming, which you can see on the left, we were worried about the lighting. So we used cheap tricks such as putting a light behind our camera to shine, as you can see that here. Therefore, you get a glare in the eyes, and it makes it look very sloppy, and it did not work well. For a second filming, however, this is when we decided to challenge artificial lighting and use only natural lighting. As you can see on the right, while it is difficult to see, I think it gives it a very realistic feel that we enjoyed thoroughly. We thought this was great. We also improved the camera movement to make it kind of flow better. We wanted the scenes to flow more into each other, and we think we achieved that much more in our second filming. We also, I'm sorry, my dog just entered again. We also used tricks such as having the cameraman in a car looking at Sean leaving his car. We thought this gave a cool perspective and angle on the film, and it made it seem like someone was watching him. We thought that was great, and that's just an example of our camera skills. My camera skills have definitely improved from our first to second filming. So another area that I've improved is in directing actors. So our first filming was sloppy to say the least. We, as you can see on the right, this is just one example. Tiana was not in the correct clothing. She's wearing a club t-shirt, she has a sticker on, and she's wearing a lanyard. This does not look like what her social group should have been portrayed as. And you can tell in the acting too. It was very rushed, it was very sloppy, and we weren't very focused. So how we improved is that in our second filming, we came into there with more of a plan. We were much more focused, and we were just more dedicated to it. As you can see, Tiana's clothes are much better in this example. She looks much more intimidating, and I think she portrays her social group much better. She also, if you watch the scene, her acting is drastically improved. I think this has to do with directing, but also with her deciding to be more focused here. I think she did a great job here, and I think my directing skills definitely improved here, and that's part, I don't want to take all the credit, but I think I personally say that's part of the success there. So to finish up, I'm going to talk about the technology used in the films. We have things such as props, the camera used to film, and editing software, which I'll get more into right now. So to start with our props, as you can see, we used iPhones as props, such as in the beginning when me and Sean were talking on the iPhones, and at the end. We had a car in there because Sean drove his car to the scene, and you can see that in the film. Therefore, a car was electronic. It's a prop. Finally, Sean used a computer at the end of a film. This was another case where technology was used as a prop. Without these props, it would have been much harder to make this film, and it would have seemed much sloppier and, childish as well. Next, for our camera, I used my iPhone 7 to record the film. I didn't have any special settings set up, but it's not the same type of camera as big premiere release cameras that they use in major theatrical releases, but I think this worked great. It works to our advantage if I say so personally. I think by using an amateur camera, it gave the film a realistic feel. I keep saying that, but it's really what we wanted to go for. It made the film feel like this was a real thing occurring. Like it was more than just a movie. Like it was a real thing happening because I think the realistic feel is what we hit. I keep saying that, but it's true. And I think this using my iPhone 7 camera worked to that advantage. Plus, I mean, an iPhone 7 camera, it's a pretty good camera. It's not top of the line, but it is pretty good, personally, if I say so. Finally, we used editing software to edit our film. More specifically, we used Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, this was installed on our school computers, and this is what our teacher told us that we should use. And while at first I thought it was great, it was difficult. I hadn't used it before, so I had to kind of teach myself how and ask for help with the teacher, and he so graciously provided it. However, there were some issues. There were some glitches with the program, and it wasn't working as smooth as we would have hoped. However, our hard work and perseverance allowed us to be successful in using the software and editing our film together to something that satisfied us. Thank you for your time and support. This has been my critical reflection essay, and I just want to thank you for your time and support once again. Connor Clevenger out, mic drop.